Rashod Bateman continues to train ahead of 2024 Ravens training camp. He posted a workout video early in the week and got roasted for it. We talk about why, what the workout was, and so much more coming up next year on Locked On Ravens.
You are Locked On Ravens, your daily Baltimore Ravens podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into another edition of Locked On Ravens, your daily NFL podcast. I am your host, Kevin Oestreicher of Ravens, right here with you on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. As always, thank you so much for being here today. And of course, making Locked On Ravens your first listen each and every day and a part of your day in general. We're free and available on all podcasting platforms. That includes in video form on YouTube, where you can like and subscribe. Also in audio form, wherever you get your shows, you can follow along and subscribe over there as well for 5 days a week plus more of daily NFL Ravens coverage. Today's episode of Locked On Ravens is brought to you by Gametime. Down the Gametime app, create an account, use code Locked On NFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. We are less than 1 week away from rookies reporting to training camp. July 13th is the magic day, just a couple days away now. Here to talk about that and more with me is former Baltimore Ravens wide receiver and Super Bowl champion Qadry Ismail. Q, the moment we have been waiting for has almost arrived. I know we've been kind of slogging through this offseason, trying to get through what we can, but the light is at the end of the tunnel and we're almost there.
Man, I tell you what, I do not like the offseason, but I absolutely enjoyed this offseason. I think last year's offseason was so much turmoil and craziness. This year, it has been a lot less turmoil. It's been a lot more football-centric, and I am absolutely loving it. So, yes, we are speeding right along. We are overheated and sweating it out. But, yes, July 13th, when those rookies report, and that signifies everything moving forward.
Yeah, so we'll talk about rookies, guys to watch, who's fighting for roster spots, positional battles. We'll get to that in the final part of the show, and then obviously a little more on Friday's episode. But I wanted to start off with you because you and I have spent a lot of time over these last couple of months talking about Rashod Bateman and performance expectations, some of the drama that's gone on with him over this offseason. We both know this is a big year for him. So naturally, you would want him to be working, which I think he has been. But there's been some conversations about him not showing up for certain things, this, that, and the other. Well, he posted a workout video earlier in the week, which, again, you're like, okay, cool. He's posting his progress. That's great. But it was a drill where essentially he was jumping over hurdles and then catching the football right at the end of it. And apparently this was not good enough for people, where he was getting roasted for it. And, oh, what type of drill is this? Why would you do this drill? You should go and catch the football, this, that, and the other. And my thought process here, Q, is he's doing what we wanted him to do. Some people work in silence. They don't post their progress, and that's fine. They do their own thing, which is totally acceptable. But Bateman showed his, and the reception was not what I expected. This drill is something that I think is pretty natural, right? You're jumping over hurdles, working on your explosiveness, vert stuff. I mean, jumping over hurdles, Q, as a former NFL wide receiver and as an athlete, catching the football and being a wide receiver is not just about running and catching the football. There's a lot more training that goes into that, which means you're doing a lot of different drills to help a lot of aspects of your physical performance in your game in general.
Yes, to everything you said. And the sigh comes from people who clearly have no idea what the heck they're talking about. And now you're putting a situation as far as what Rashod Bateman is doing into the light. And it's dumb. Like, the bottom line is this: football is a collision sport. You got to prepare your body for the rigors of these collisions. At the same time, from a wide receiver perspective, you got to be very explosive. You got to train the not only fast switch, but the super fast switch muscle fibers. You got to train the tendons and ligaments to be able to load energy and release that energy to move in multiple directions at a moment's notice. I saw the video. Ironically enough, I have those same hurdles. And at the same time, what he was doing was a plyometric type drill which in that explosiveness, it's what you do to help yourself as far as your foot platform being strong, your ankle getting strong mobility and suppleness that translates up into the hips. And then, yes, you get a little eye-hand coordination at the very end when you're catching that ball that was thrown to him. Like, that's workout 101 type things. I mean, it's advanced, but it's still, for his level, workout 101. That's something you pattern into your workout. And it's a clip. Like, for all we know, when he was done, he could have, like, done, good God, like a multitude of other things. He could have literally sat there and full on done routes till the cows came home, all that. But instead, we're worried about, oh, he should be catching footballs. Oh, Rashod Bateman this. Oh, Rashod Bateman that. Man, that dude was jumping and landing. His foot was sound. What was holding him back? What did he even talk about in the offseason? Man, last year I went through training camp and I was still hurting. He clearly, by the way it looks with his foot, is not hurting. That's a bonus. Hallelujah. Let's continue to move forward.
Yeah, that was my takeaway. It's like he looked good doing it. Obviously, players will post what they want to post. They will post drills. Rashod Bateman is not going out there for 8 hours. At least I would think not going out there for 8 hours a day and just jumping over hurdles for 8 hours a day. And that is his entire training regimen. You're right, Q. I'm sure he probably was catching footballs either before or after that. He had done it probably that week. This is just what he decided to share. And he did get roasted. I thought the response was, and I was not expecting the response. Plus, it's almost like a game of Mythbusters we're going to play now, Q, because there were a lot of other just very tiny nuances in that clip where people were essentially freaking out over. One of them being the surface that this was happening on. Concrete versus turf or grass. Obviously, this was on concrete. People were freaking out saying, oh, well, that's more susceptible to tearing your Achilles, and if he lands the wrong way. And I'm just thinking, okay, let's slow down a little bit here. Surface-wise, Q, concrete, turf, grass, is there a difference or is there not?
Again, when it comes to missile training, what I have come to research, know, study, and dwell in for now going on little over a half a decade is that the foot platform, when it is strong and primed, it gives that stability to the ankle, and the ankle kind of fits into that foot platform like a joystick. That joystick movement, because of the strong platform, it goes up the chain into the hip. When it goes up into that hip, the foot and ankle are so sound that the hip is able to move from out to in. Load, unload. Ed Reid, Michael Jordan. Those are two that come to mind, or Randy Moss and Simone Biles. Those athletes, when it comes to the way they move, the surface doesn't matter. The foot platform is so strong, the Achilles is able to properly load. For Rashod Bateman, when you looked at it, he never collapsed his foot. If he collapsed his foot, it wouldn't have mattered if he was on turf or grass or concrete. He would have hurt himself. I'm thankful that it actually was a more stable surface, because then you get way more feedback than if you did an unstable surface. The unstable surface level of training, the whole canoroceptors and proprioceptors and where you're at in space, like that has been debunked, and that's not exactly the greatest thing for a person. So you got to miss me with all the, oh my gosh, his surface. No, it's how he's moving. To me, when I saw it, the first thing I looked at, I was like, how's his foot platform? Good. Okay, great. Now, the next day, which we're not going to know, we don't technically know the timeline of when he posted it, if it was, posted off of a couple of days, whatever. But the point I'm making is that how sore was it the next workout session, or was it not sore at all? If it wasn't sore at all, man, that's a huge awesomeness. If it was a little sore, okay, figure it out, go from there.
Don't you just love the offseason Q? Us just overanalyzing. I think it was literally a 9-second clip of Rashod Bateman working out because people are freaking out over it and saying that was the wrong drill to post. I mean, this is peak offseason content. Luckily, as we said, rookies are reporting they're going to save us here in a couple of days, and we'll be able to actually have some substance here to talk about. But the other part of this, which to me was the craziest, I mean, we've talked about a couple crazy things already. This was the craziest part to me. Then Lamar started to get flamed because Lamar wasn't there. And I'm just like, what do we want here? What do we want? Because obviously Bateman was not with Lamar when we talked about this last week when he was with Nelson and Tez and all those guys. And now this seemed to just be like some like private thing where he was just doing it on his own, not really like organized or anything, maybe with one or two other people there. And now everybody's like, well, where's Lamar? Why isn't Lamar there? I did see that. And I'm just like, the only thing that will help these people who are freaking out about it is a Lamar to Bateman together clip in the offseason. And I don't think we're going to get it at this point. Maybe we will, but that doesn't mean that they're both not doing their thing. They clearly are. They have both posted workout videos, but I know the overlying thing and the reason that people are having that opinion Q is because the chemistry for both of those guys, it has been stunted because Bateman has not been able to be on the field, and Lamar also has had his share of injuries as well that have kept them off the field together. So the conversation is, okay, why don't you get together in the offseason and why don't you work on that chemistry? Well, they'll be together in a couple of days, literally about a week or so now. But the conversation, I think, does stem from why don't you get chemistry into the offseason, which we did talk about last week.
Well, I think from a chemistry standpoint, there is something to be said about, getting up with your quarterback and, kind of filling out nuances, but they're both veterans right now. They're young veterans, but they're veterans. They kind of already know. It's not like I'm sitting there and I'm brand new. This is the second year in Todd Monken's system, second year for Rashod Bateman. First year, it seems like his offseason is relaxed and healthy. They gave him a contract extension. Lamar is doing Lamar things, whether it's been traveling abroad to coming into OTAs to now he's going to have his, Lamar Jackson's,
the fun day.
The fun day, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
All that. Like, okay, like if you want to go down there and do it, great. If you aren't going to bring him down there and have him participate in it, and he is like, he meaning Bateman is like, yeah, I'm cool with that, then let him be cool with it. Like, I think we're making mountains out of a molehill. There's plenty of time for them to get up and get going with one another when it comes to chemistry, when it comes to the offense and grooving. The main thing is the main thing. I got to work on myself, get my mind right. Lamar, he's got to do it. Let us get together. We'll make it all happen.
All right. And again, it would be great if those two were able to get together and work together this offseason. Now, that'd be definitely preferred. But again, it's the offseason. They're both training. Now, the big thing is going to be, can they get enough chemistry in training camp? I do believe so. I think so. It's just a matter of Bateman staying healthy and being able to get that chemistry and figure it out. So we will see. But guess what, everybody? Rashod Bateman worked out. He put a clip out there, and we spent a whole segment talking about it. This is peak offseason content here, and this is why Q said, you heard him at the beginning, right? The offseason, he said, is his absolute favorite part. He wishes the offseason was 365 days a year. You heard him loud and clear at the beginning. And plus, if you've been with us for a while, you know that Q loves the offseason because he loved talking about DeAndre Hopkins in November. We're talking about all that. So coming up in the second part of the show, though, we're gonna dive into a little bit more of Lamar Jackson conversation. That's been a big topic. There was recently a clip on ESPN Radio about the era of Patrick Mahomes. So be sure to stay tuned. We'll talk about that next up on Locked On Ravens. First, the show is brought to you by Gametime. I love going to MLB games. I have really for my entire life. I've had a ton of great memories that I've made from those, especially those I've attended with my dad. And I'm looking forward to going to a couple more games this season. Obviously, I try to get to a couple per year. But Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace in Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets the first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from receipt, and the lowest price guarantee. Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. And on the Gametime app, of course, for the Orioles, there are going to be some games, especially against the Yankees, that I'd love to go to. That's going to be a big series for the All-Star break. And I think if I were to pick some, those would definitely be the ones I'd love to go to. But the app has a bunch of great features. And my favorite is last-minute deals. You can save up to 60% off buying last-minute tickets for sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more. But the app is also really easy to navigate and easy to use as well. Other features include flash deals, zone deals, all-in pricing, seat views, lowest price guarantee, game time ticket coverage, and so much more. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. So it's probably create an account, redeem code LOCKEDONNFL, spell LOCKEDO on NFL with $20 off. Download Gametime to the last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. We're back with our second segment, Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher and Qadry Ismail still talking with you on this Thursday edition episode. Q, Lamar Jackson has been the center of attention. We talked about what Mark Schlereth had to say, you and I, a bit last week. But on ESPN Radio, Freddie Coleman had a very interesting clip. Him and Harry Douglas were talking together. And essentially what Freddie Coleman said was, in the land of Mahomes, you can be born at the wrong time. Essentially meaning like when you are this great quarterback like Lamar Jackson. And the conversation was more so about Lamar. It was in response to who's better in their prime, Cam or Lamar, because of that whole conversation. But it can apply to anybody else, not named Patrick Mahomes. It almost feels like the Tom Brady conversation where we had some all-time great quarterbacks in that era alongside Brady. But obviously Brady was the one who kept winning the championships and this, that, and the other. But Harry Douglas responded and said, well, Lamar's in his prime right now. And it's not done. It's nowhere close to done. So do you believe that this is the era of Patrick Mahomes? We're just going to be living through this until he retires, much like Tom Brady? Or do you think that it is closer than people might anticipate?
The thing that is working in Patrick Mahomes' favor, he has Andy Reid. Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes are to Bill Belichick and Tom Brady. Andy Reid knows the way in which to get the most out of his quarterback. And because of that, it's an advantage for Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Reid. There you go. But Pat Mahomes, I think, for the way his organization is run, the way they acquire talent, and the way he basically is going out there and playing his style, like it all complements him. I think for what we're seeing with Lamar Jackson, it's almost Peyton Manning-esque. You know, Peyton Manning is a Hall of Famer. Tom Brady's a Hall of Famer. Tom Brady, resume-wise, has a little bit more than Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning's doing A-OK. He's one of the all-time greats. So, at the same time, you can't necessarily say, oh, my God, Lamar Jackson's going to have, like a Peyton Manning type of career and feel it's bad. Shoot, what? That's 2 championships. So that's basically 4 for the organization. That's hallowed ground. Then you're talking about the infancy of the organization compared to some of the blue bloods around, i.e. the Dallas Cowboys. Heck, you can even put the Philadelphia Eagles in that equation. Man, you still live large. But you got to face reality, and this isn't it's zero knock on our guy and, Lamar Jackson. But, yeah, you're living in Patrick Mahomes' world, and you got to either adapt and adjust and get better. And if you get better and, jump up to his level, beat him, cool. If you don't, Peyton Manning, not that bad. Or, could be worse, could be Drew Brees. And, yeah, you still get a championship. We're just going to be putting up a lot of numbers and coming up short because you're going to be running into guys like a Tom Brady. And so I think that's something where, you got Joe Burrow, you got who's our dude out in why am I drawing a blank? Out in the Chargers.
Herbert.
Thank you, Herbert. Justin Herbert, he's about to go through with Greg Roman and seeing how that all is going to work out. You got your boy up in Buffalo, see how that's all going to work out. You got your boy down in Miami. We'll see how that all works out. And then you got everybody else kind of, the Baker Mayfields of the world that are kind of like down in that second tier. You got the potentials guys like the Jalen Hurts, although Jalen did, take his team to the big dance, so you can't discredit that. I think, his new coordinator, hopefully he'll figure it out. I think that's what's going to be hurting Jalen. But when you look at, just the body of work for what Patrick Mahomes has brought to the table, it's Patrick Mahomes' world and you're living in it.
And again, it's all, and Freddie Coleman and Harry Douglas essentially compared it to almost like a King of the Hill situation, right? Where Mahomes is on top, and we can all acknowledge that, right? We can be fans of Lamar. We can cover Lamar. We can talk about Lamar and say he's a great quarterback, but we have to be realistic and say, yes, Mahomes has 3 championships. And in today's day and age, obviously MVPs do carry weight. Accolades do carry weight. Records do carry weight. But championships carry the most weight in today's age, just in terms of discourse, in terms of Hall of Fame, right? There's a conversation right now when you're talking about Lamar, it's, would Lamar make the Hall of Fame if his career ended today? And the answer, I think some people say yes and other people say no, because he does not have a championship. Some people value MVPs more. They value the accolades more. But championships are the be-all, end-all with these guys. And I think that's fair. So obviously I'm not saying Lamar
has a MVP Super Bowl championship. Like, what are we talking about here? Regular season holds weight, don't get me wrong. But, like, you're talking about Patrick Mahomes with his MVPs, like, stacked up and team championships. Like, come on. Like, whoa. Let's not go Lamar-ite on us, people. Let's be reasonable.
Well, and again, I think that with Lamar and Mahomes, right? Both guys, their stories are far from over. And that's what Freddie Coleman said. He said he doesn't think we have seen the best of Lamar Jackson, which I would agree with. Obviously, it's a tall task to live up to a 2019 MVP and a 2023 MVP. But I still think Lamar, Harry Douglas said, I don't think we've seen 75% of Lamar Jackson's prime. There's still a long way to go. King of the Hill is subject to change. There is a world where Lamar could get a couple Super Bowl championships under his belt. Mahomes and the Chiefs begin to fall off, and that could be that, but we're not there yet. Where we are right now is Mahomes has 3 championships, and Lamar doesn't have any. Now, a championship will go a long way for Lamar in terms of his legacy. I certainly would say that. But to me, I agree where I don't think we've seen the best of Lamar, and there is a shot that Lamar can knock Mahomes off of the King of the Hill competition. But right now, it's more so likely that people have already begun the comparisons of Mahomes and Brady. It's already been happening ever since they won the Super Bowl. It's going to take a long thing here. But again, if he doesn't do that, if Mahomes ends up being this is the Mahomes era, and Lamar finishes number 2 behind Mahomes, you mentioned it right there, Q. Not everybody can be number 1, but you know what? A lot of people can be elite all-time players. And I think we're on that track with Lamar, especially if he can get those championships under his belt.
One of the things that I look at is the way in which Lamar has continually grown. Again, he has Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. Lamar has had kind of a good coordinators, but they're not going to be Hall of Fame coaches when it's all said and done. I mean, perhaps, I guess they have room to grow as well. But Andy Reid is already solidified, is what I'm trying to say. He's already solidified. His resume was solidified, Hall of Fame worthy when it came to what they did in Philly with the NFC championship games that he took his teams to and all that. But what he did to establish as far as championships, AFC West division championships, all the way into AFC championships, all the way into NFL championships. Okay. Like, there's opportunity there to usurp that. But, his coaching staff and what he's about sure the heck supports strongly Patrick Mahomes. That's what we're trying to see when it comes to, what Lamar Jackson is going to have as far as his resume and what his overall body of work when we look back on it.
Yeah. And again, I don't want this conversation or this segment to be taken as, oh, well, Lamar is never going to be able to live up to, this all-time great status and he's never going to be an all. That's not what we're saying. That's not what we're saying. What we're saying is Lamar probably at the end of the day will be considered an all-time great. He's already well on his way. But every era has a number one. Lamar still has an opportunity to do it. There is a world where it happens. And I think it is, if there is anybody to do it, I think Lamar would be the guy. Outside of guys like Joe Burrow and Josh Allen. Like, I think I would pick Lamar over any of those guys because I think he's further ahead personally than either of them. But Mahomes has the accolades. So does Lamar. Lamar has more MVPs. But Mahomes has the championships. And again, in today's age, Q, we know that championships carry the most weight. That's the path for Lamar to get up on that hill. But right now, it is Mahomes. And it's his era. And that's fine because you know what? People can exist in other eras and still win championships. Talk about the Brady era. Guess what? Joe Flacco won a championship in the Brady era. The Ravens won a Super Bowl. Other teams won Super Bowls in the quote-unquote Brady era. They were close to winning multiple Super Bowls in the Brady era. Doesn't mean they can't do it. Doesn't mean, well, obviously we know Lamar will be a much, much higher on the all-time list than Joe when it's all said and done in terms of just, but again, that also comes with a championship. Why do people speak about Joe the way that they do? Because he led that team to a championship. So it's a very intriguing conversation, one that has many different avenues and many different points. But one point that is absolute is that Lamar still is a great quarterback, and we're still witnessing his prime right now. And I don't think we've seen the best of him.
The one thing I look at from Lamar's standpoint, it's this era when it comes to being quarterback friendly. It gives him a chance to sustain health and fullness of a career compared to earlier times where it wasn't as full-on QB friendly. So I think when you look at Lamar Jackson and you look at his early resume, it's on point. We'll see how it grows, but I think at the same time, in my mind, like, he can get hot. And if he gets hot and he gets into that groove and a game further slows down as far as the postseason, yeah, look out. That's going to be of value. Yeah.
There is still room to grow for Lamar Jackson, which I think is a very scary proposition here for the rest of the league. Coming up, though, we're going to be talking about some rookies to watch at training camp. Obviously, we said they report on Saturday, so we're slowly but surely getting to where we need to go here with training camp. Coming up, we'll talk about which players to watch, who can make a big impact, earn playing time, and more. Stay tuned. Lots to get to on the show. We are back rounding out Locked On Ravens. Kevin Oestreicher and Qadry Ismail here with you, rounding out this Thursday episode. Appreciate everybody being here and making Locked On Ravens a part of your day as always. We just hit 7,000 subscribers a couple weeks ago here on YouTube. So if you want to be a part of that journey to 8,000, be sure to hit that like button and subscribe on this channel, also in audio form. Of course, we have you covered, whether you want to subscribe, follow along, Apple Podcasts, Spotify as well. But Q, rookies, it is almost here. A lot of anticipation and excitement when it comes to this rookie class. I think we're going to see a lot of big-time contributions this season. But let's start with Nate Wiggins. I mean, he was their number one pick. I think it's only right to start with him. He's going to be competing in that corner room for snaps with Marlon Humphrey and Brandon Stevens. Now, we know Baltimore loves their three-corner rotations on the outside. We've seen it plenty of times over the course of however really far you want to go back. I anticipate Wiggins having a decently sized role in this defense this season, especially because his skill set with the speed. We know that these teams, they love their speed wide receivers. We know Kansas City has certainly added plenty of that with Marquise Brown, Xavier Worthy, all across the league. You look and there's just speed on the outside. Well, I think Nate Wiggins can help a lot with that, and that's why I expect him to play a big role this year.
Yeah, I think for Nate, it is going to be somewhat of a growing process just to get the feel and the flow of the game. But from a defensive back aspect and talent, technique, just his abilities as far as change direction, all that. Like I'm betting on him. I think he's going to be on point. I think he's going to be a valuable asset to what is potentially a good, strong secondary. Obviously, the health of Marlon is really going to be a pivotal thing. But if he is healthy, if Marcus Williams is healthy, like the versatility of Aaron Millett, and then you put in a Nate Wiggins, goodness gracious. That's where you thrive against teams that have like the Kansas City Chiefs is what you said, but also teams like in your division. it helps Zach Orr out to do some funky things up front when you got a guy that you can plug in like a Nate Wiggins.
It does. And to me, I feel like also with them adding TJ Tampa, who again, there'll be less playing time for him. But I do think the Ravens now, when you talk about positional depth, and we go through this conversation every year where they start the year with 50 healthy corners, they end the year with 2. Cornerback depth is so important in today's NFL, but they have it. They do. And again, they essentially trade out Ronald Darby and Rock Ya-Sin for Nate Wiggins and TJ Tampa. I think that is a upgrade, despite how well Darby played for them last season. If Nate Wiggins can live up to who we know he can become. But you're right, Q. It's not going to just be, okay, boom, he's a first-team All-Pro his first season. That'd be really great. I'm really hoping for that, by the way. But it doesn't happen all the time with rookies, right? Can happen, but you're not banking on that. You're banking on just a solid baseline production with growth throughout the season. Speaking of that, though, Roger Rosengarten certainly will have to have a solid baseline if he wins that starting right tackle job, because the offensive line is so important for the Ravens this year, especially because they lost 3 starters and they're filling in those holes with a bunch of younger players, it looks like. And Rosengarten is somebody, we know the foot speed is there, the athleticism is there, bit on the smaller side in terms of weight and whatnot, which again was a theme with Wiggins and Rosengarten. They had a certain type and they drafted to it, but athleticism is a big part of this Ravens offense. And we now kind of know what Todd Monken envisioned his offensive line to be, because when he came in, he inherited a Greg Roman offensive line. So the vets are out, young guys are in. How confident are you in Rosengarten heading into training camp, knowing that we're going to see a lot of him and we're going to have to see a pretty successful year from him in order for Baltimore to reach their full potential on offense?
I think everything hinges upon this offensive line. Everything. As much as we can talk ad nauseum about all the speed guys and the different skill guys and the depth and all that, everything hinges on it. I think what we saw last year, you had a revolving door from an offensive line standpoint. I think if we can see where this offensive line can be consistent and have a cohesiveness, Todd Monken has, and Joe D'Alessandro, the best offensive line coach. And I think they're going to be able to like match it to the skill set of the guys that they have up front. And if it's, a scenario Rosengarten is going to be light, but yet he can move, you best believe it. Like, we're going to use that as a good thing. Why? Well, because you got a quarterback that can move. You're going to have a running back that all he needs to do is just get to the second level, and he's gone. Justice Hill and Keaton Mitchell, they're explosive players. You just need to get in front of a guy. You don't need to have necessarily that power offensive line unit. At the same time, I also look at Voorhees as a rookie as well, because he missed all of last year, and I think this is genius as far as putting him in there and seeing what he can do at that left guard spot. Now, it's all contingent, yes, obviously, on what happens as far as training camp when they get physical. But I'm loving it so far, and I just think that this position is the best key position that we're going to have to look at and see for this team to be successful.
Yeah, when you're talking about opening rushing lanes, protecting your quarterback, it does all start up front. Lamar can be a wizard. He can be Houdini. Derrick Henry can run over guys. But you know what? It makes it a whole lot easier if your offensive line can keep those guys clean and open up lanes for them to either throw the ball through or run the ball through. Now, speaking of all this speed and skill position and whatnot, Tez Walker Q has been one of the standouts for the Ravens so far. He's earned rave reviews, OTAs, minicamp. He's somebody that I think opens up training camp as a number 4 receiver on this team behind Zay Flowers, Rashod Bateman, and Nelson Aguilar. But I do think there was room for him to carve out a nice role, maybe even skill specific on this team based off of his frame, his speed, his body type. Something the Ravens have been looking for is that contested catch, jump ball, wide receiver. And I think Tez Walker can provide that. What are you looking for out of him as we get closer to training camp and we get into that mode?
Yeah, Tez, the cool thing about Tez is that he can flat out get down the football field, and he does have that larger frame, contested ball, kind of a flow that, like, if a guy's bodying me up, I can go up and get the ball. And I think the fact that he doesn't have any pressure on him really, because you're looking at Zay Flowers, Bateman, the tight end group, and in my mind, I just think that if I'm him, I got any pressure on me, all I gotta do is just go out there and okay, this is my assignment. I'm just gonna run by a guy. It just speaks of a Torrey Smith like guy where there were times where, because everybody else was so good, Torrey would, be in a cut split and it'd be so run dominant heavy that you had to respect the run, Ray Rice and company. And then Torrey just run right by the safety and go over the top. Those are good problems to have if you're Todd Monken, trying to figure out, your weapons and what guys can do. This is going to be a real interesting training camp for the receiving core because it'll give them a chance to get out of that shadow of the tradition of Ravens receivers can or cannot and all the things that from a draft pick standpoint.
Yeah, and I think Tez has the ability and the potential to be one of the better draft picks they've had at that position, but it's going to come down to him utilizing his skill set the way that we know he can and the way that we've seen him do it in college and translating that over to the NFL game. Now, we know the Ravens love their undrafted rookies. We know they seem to find a guy or two, a diamond in the rough, a gem every year, and they have a lot of guys who could potentially be in that conversation. Joe Evans is someone who has earned a lot of rave reviews, him being a defensive end type of guy, but also maybe has a little Patrick Ricard, can maybe play on the offensive side of the ball too. Obviously, some undrafted pass catchers, Dayton Wade, and I think you're very familiar with another one of those, and Qadry Ismail. Maybe a little relation to you in terms of last name. But in terms of the undrafted guys, do you feel like there's enough roster space for one or two of these guys to make a name for themselves and get a roster spot? Or do you think that they have stacked up so much young talent over the years, these past 2, 3, 4 seasons, it'll be a bit more difficult for these guys to carve out roles?
Not at all. Here's why. Two things. One, you got the kickoff and kickoff coverage. You have the obvious new rules of it. So there's going to be opportunity there. It's not just a wasted kick and hey, okay, put your arms out there. There's going to be incentive to make big plays. So that's one. Number two, when you look at the way the season is so long and now the way they've expanded the practice squad, there's so much more flexibility to be on the squad, to recognize, hey, we got to get these guys ready. And if they are ready, then if somebody does go down, we just plug and play. That's what makes teams so great to get through seasons. And then in that, obviously postseason, you're going to have your stars healthy and ready to go. But the way the rules are constituted now, it makes it a lot easier for a team like the Ravens who likes to develop their young talent across the board. I just think that this is prime opportunity to be a Raven, the way the league is, but then also the way the Ravens practice and prepare their guys. If you are mentally ready for it, I think it's a bonus and an advantage.
Yeah, and we know the Ravens have had plenty of those stories of them developing guys and finding their talent, the eye for talent they have after the draft, as well as during it, obviously. But after the draft, they have found those guys. So it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out. But Q, appreciate you. Thanks so much again for hopping on, talking some football. And next week, we will be officially done with the quote-unquote offseason in terms of just needing content for that. We'll have some content to talk about rookie-wise. So I hope you're looking forward to that. I know it's a little sad for you because you love the offseason so much. But tell people where they can find you and what you're working on.
Yeah, man, I'm at my missile training facility. And if you want to come into the missile training facility and train similar to what guys like Rashod Bateman and Qadry Ismail do, then missiletraining.com. If you are in the age range of 7 to 85, I'm your guy. Those are my age ranges, my youngest and my oldest clients. Missiletraining.com is where you'll find me there. WJZ. I'm going to be back for another year of all my purple shows that I'm a part of. And Locked On Ravens. Kevin Ostreicher and I, we break it all down for you. Check us out on here. every week. Love breaking it down, the content, and making sure that you, the Raven fan, don't turn into a Lamarite, but turn into an educated fan of the Baltimore Ravens that has a badass two-time MVP quarterback that you can intelligently root for.
That's what we do here. We drop the knowledge, we provide you with insights, and Q, you are a very big part of what we do over here on this show. So appreciate you as always. And Q's links, all of his work in the description down below, missiletraining.com. Be sure to check that out. That's all I have for you here today, though, Q. Again, thank you. And thank everybody out there for listening to the show today. Be sure to like and subscribe, video form, audio form. Coming up tomorrow, we're rounding out the week. More Ravens content, diving more into the rookies' positional battles to watch as they report to training camp on Saturday. Stay tuned. I'll see you right back here tomorrow on Locked On Ravens.